The first is to identify the impact of food diet characteristics on the biological response of individuals. And the second is to identify the biological and physiological determinants of the variability. And therefore, as part of the priorities, we studied the bioavailability and effectiveness of sourcing, new processes, as well as allergy. We also study genetic, exposure, and the developmental origins of health and disease. We study microbiome functions, the metabolism of preventive nutrition, as well as life course and health aspects. So how selected a recent result in Oxys priority. We have contributed to identify the blood biomarker to assess the risk of visual impairment caused by age-related macular degeneration. One risk factor of age-related macular degeneration is addiction in omega-3 fatty acids, a condition that was previously impossible to treat. By analyzing retinas and blood from 46 human donors, scientists were able to identify a biomarker that predicts retinal levels of omega-3 fatty acids. And thanks to this biomarker, at-risk individuals can receive dietary support. The second priority of the division is to understand and improve dietary behaviors and choices to reach healthy and sustainable diets. We integrate data which make it possible to understand the molecular, cellular, biological, physiological, and psychological mechanisms influencing dietary behaviors during life course and health aspects. And we also identify the determinants of dietary behavior and choices of individuals and populations throughout life. We particularly study how dietary behaviors evolve with age, exposure, dietary conditions, and we focus on periods such as weaning, food diversifications, or changes in the way of life, and as well as variations in logical and metabolic status. For example, we have on the prevalence of malnutrition risk among older French adults with culinary dependence. The term culinary dependence denotes the situation in which some delegates are all or part of their daily related activities to a third party. And a survey found that a strong association between culinary dependence and nutritional risk. About half of the people who delegated their food-related activities were malnourished or at risk of malnutrition, compared with only 4% for people with no health and 12% for people with health unrelated activities. So we can infer a causal relationship between dependence and malnutrition, but there is a strong need for structures to take into account the issue of malnutrition when developing services targeting older people. The third priority concerns toxicological risk. The food is a major exposure route to chemical contaminants, which are directly or indirectly involved in various diseases such as cancer, metabolism dysfunctions, or immunity disorders. And this third priority aims to identify and characterize potential new risks related to lifestyle, to study the mechanisms of action of contaminants, and to develop strategies for the remediation and prevention of toxicological risks. Here again, a research result on pesticide exposure in vegetarian diet. Levels of exposure to quantified natural and synthetic pesticides via plant-based foods were studied in omnivores, vegetarian, and vegan individuals. And the research took into account the organic balance of the diet. In general, individuals on vegetarian diet methods accounted for most exposure, with the exception of most testified, with the exception of the 3 testified allowed in organic farming. So eating large quantity of organic food could be a way to reduce exposure to synthetic pesticides, especially in individuals following vegetarian diet. The fourth priority aim to encourage the transitions for the development of sustainable and healthy food systems. So, sustainable food includes both food security and nutrition security. It also includes social concern and questions pertaining to food sources and protection of the environment. Our studies aim at characterizing and promoting the adoption of adequate diets in healthy and sustainable food systems. So here again an example. In 2017, French food-based dietary guidelines were updated to incorporate environmental preservation. And our study suggests that the 2017 guidelines are in line with the multiple dimensions of diet sustainability, including health, also at a slight cost increase. If adopted by a large part of the population, these dietary guidelines might contribute to the prevention of chronic diseases while reducing food-related environmental pressures. And finally, our fifth priority. So our division strongly encourages data sciences to better predict and analyze the risk-benefit ratio of healthy and sustainable diet. The two subtopics of this priority consist in defining the data and interoperability necessary to improve the knowledge and definition of the healthy and sustainable diet, and two, to integrate complex data to predict and analyze the benefit-risk ratio of the healthy and sustainable diet. We are also involved in several national research infrastructures, and some are similar to infrastructures of the MICA division. So briefly, we're involved in the CALIS national infrastructure, whose objective is to study the impact of diet on health, the environment, and on the economy. We are also involved in ERNH, which are human nutrition research centers, and they give us the opportunity to develop transnational research in nutrition and health. We are also involved in the infrastructure metabolic on metabolic. And recently we have joined the France Escola infrastructure. We intend to structure and coordinate a scientific community that is studying the human chemical exposure. Just a few information about our partnership and innovation. So over the 2016-2021 period, our division has deposited 6 inventions, projects, and 33 patents. It has led also to the creation of 7 startups companies in the areas of nutrition, toxicology, and sensory analysis. And over the same period, we have signed nearly 150 contracts with various private partners, mainly the food industry, but foundations and pharmaceutical industry as well. And now I just finish my presentation with a presentation of our associated partnership laboratory. So first, we created in 2014 the Opti-Nutri-Brain Laboratory, which involves the Institute of Nutrition and Functional Foods from Laval University in Canada, and one in my on nutrition and integrated human biology kit. And the topic of this laboratory is nutrition and brain health. From this associated partnership laboratory has emerged an international research network, Food for Brain Health, and it includes 3 invited units and 6 universities in Canada. So it was created in 2019, and it is a network of leaders in neurological and nutritional sciences in France and Canada. And finally, we also have an associated partnership laboratory called Protein and Nutrition Security. It is an association between the Laboratory on Nutrition, Physiology and Behavior and the St. John's Research Institute in Bangalore in India. It was created in 2019, and its objective is to provide scientific data on protein and indispensable amino acid requirements for different human subjects and populations. It also aims to provide scientific data on amino acid availability related to those traditional staple foods and potential alternative protein sources. It provides updated reference values to nutritional needs for different populations, and it also aims to provide scientific advice for international authorities in order to formulate dietary recommendations. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much for your presentations. Now, let me introduce you to some of our distinguished guests. It's with special excitement that I'm pleased to welcome the coordinator of the Laboratory of Cellular and Molecular Genetics of UFMG, Professor Dr. Vasco Azevedo. Please join me in welcoming him.
Thanks so much to be with you guys. Now, I'd like to invite the member to conclude the table is a very important week to UFMG because it's the knowledge week, and you have a lot of help to do this meeting. My director is sick. Ricardo has maybe COVID-19 and he can't come, but I'd like to invite the Vice President of Research, Fernando Moro, to compose the table. The Vice President of the Library Program, Isabella Amigo, and of coming to be here with you guys. She represents the International Relations Department. And I would like to invite the Director of the Veterinary School, and oh my goodness. Yeah, and Afonso, and thanks a lot for Aristotle going there to Daniela, Frederico Soriano, helped us to receive the French people and the older Brazilian. And other things, and my department chief, Gustavo Kuhn, yesterday is coming to the Fernanda Luna thesis and today to this open ceremony. Thanks so much, and I will please come on the table. So I invited the Vice President of Research to open the ceremony.
Thank you. It's a privilege to be here. We are now celebrating the 95th anniversary of our university foundation. This is a special year for us to celebrate our great research groups and teams and leaders that are here represented by Professor Vasquez and his co-workers. So welcome to everybody, and please enjoy this wonderful university and this campus to everyone who is coming to visit us. And we are very proud to have this great team of research in genetics and microbiologics and food stuff. We hope we have a very good day of work together. And I thank you for having us here in this ceremony. Thank you. And this is, I give the word back to our host.
Good morning, everyone. First of all, I would like to give the warmest welcome to our friends from France, and to say it's rather important to have you all here. This week, as mentioned before, is a very important week for us at university, since we are celebrating the 25th, I think, Finland might be able to correct me, week of the scientific knowledge. And throughout the whole week, we have meetings discussing and proposing new ideas for research, and as well as presenting what is being developed in our university. And it's unique to be here at our university, since last night we had the most beautiful ceremony celebrating what we call, I'll give you as a free translation, I'm not quite sure if this is the right word in English, but it's notorious knowledge. In other words, the recognition of traditional knowledge as knowledge that we should respect, cultivate, and bring into our university. And as we sit here this morning and we see the international partnerships, and as we hear our French colleagues describing what's being developed in France, I must say I feel very proud of our university, since we have such strong partnerships. And above all, what we've seen here this morning is the fact that we have science. Second, we establish a strategy, and global strategy for the population. And there is one word that really affected me this morning, when it said, well, we want sustainable food for all, for fairness. In other words, we're talking about equity, and that's a quite strong word for myself. Thank you for inviting me. for being here. I welcome you all, and I hope that this 3 days forward,
3 days,
yes, will be very productive.
On the last day, have a cocktail tea with the Brenda, if you can get those students.
Good, that's very good. Thank you so much for being here and for being invited for this moment.
Francisco, but excuse me, I did a mistake. I don't think you are here. Valdes also from pharmacy, the Francisco Abate is department chief, and Sanso for coming. And Barbara, please.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. It's also a pleasure to be here. I would like to greet our distinguished guests from our partnership. It's a pleasure to have you here with us. My colleagues in the panel as well, Professor Fernando Reis, Isabella, the Dean for our postgrad, and also our research team as well. Also the head for the veterinary school here with us, and all the partners that are joining in this initiative. Our international office follows with a lot of enthusiasm all the initiatives concerning internationalization, and it wouldn't be different in an initiative like the one that we just saw this morning. So, as Professor Isabella just mentioned, it's a pleasure to participate somehow in corporations like the one that has just been presented today. I also would like to extend my welcome and my greetings to colleagues in the audience that somehow cooperate and collaborate in all the initiatives purposing internationalization as well. I do believe that we are going through a very important moment in our institution. All the corporations are being reestablished at the moment after the pandemic, and we are seeing that it's flourishing. We are receiving partners in our university. We have members from our academic staff traveling to establish and reestablish networks and research collaboration. So we see this with a lot of prosper feeling, and we do hope that the years ahead are going to be very productive. We do believe that it's going to happen, and that is just one sign of that we just witnessed this morning. So I thank you all for the opportunity for being here with you, and I wish you good days ahead, very productive with more interaction, and we are here in our institution to assist you and to give all the support you need to foster and to prosper even more. Thank you, Vasco, and all your team.
Tem um Civic preto na frente da catraca, atrapalhando. Alguém tem esse carro aqui? Um Fiat, um Civic preto. Placa do Rio de Janeiro. Placa do Rio de Janeiro. Não é ufa. For close this table, I invite my colleague. I'm a veterinary also, and I would like to say thanks so much for the warm welcome to the meeting. And it is a very nice auditorium, not the Professor also.
Bom dia a todos, good morning, bonjour. É um prazer recebê-los aqui, tanto os que estão acompanhando pela internet, como os que estão aqui presentes, nesta reunião dos laboratórios internacionais associados. É um prazer receber aqui o professor Vasco, que lidera o guia já desde 2018, e estamos muito felizes que a Escola Veterinária possa abrigar esse evento neste momento, onde nós temos ocorrido de forma concomitante a Semana do Conhecimento. Desejamos que os trabalhos aqui realizados sejam de grande importância e possamos acolher bem tanto o evento como os nossos visitantes da França, da Argentina e demais participantes. ficamos muito felizes na escola poder recebê-los e poder contribuir, principalmente para áreas que têm uma relação muito grande com a medicina veterinária, que é a parte de produção animal, a parte de processamento e tecnologia de produtos e também a parte de saúde humana, que hoje nós abrigamos tudo numa terminologia de saúde única. É uma preocupação brasileira, é uma preocupação internacional e, com certeza, a atualização que nós receberemos com esse evento será muito importante para a Escola de Veterinária e para aqueles todos que podem acompanhar o evento neste momento. Muito obrigado.
Even we will speak in Portuguese, because he told me Portuguese, he don't really like so much my language.
Muito obrigado, Pastor. Muito obrigado a todos. Estou aqui sentado sozinho nessa mesa, mas na verdade cheguei aqui com 3 outros franceses, com meus amigos de Rennes, Eric Guidon, ele vai falar no dia que vem, 2 outros franceses de Paris, Jean-Marc Chatel, que é o co-coordenador da arte francesa desse LIA, Philippe Langelat, que é o nosso pai, o pai da colaboração, o nosso amigo, é pai dessa colaboração. Então, mais uma vez, muito obrigado a todos para ser tão muito obrigado também ao próximo, o meu irmão brasileiro.
E 23 vezes que veio no Brasil, ele recebeu muitos, tanto ele como o Felipe. São 40 pessoas que a gente mandou da UFMG. Então, para a França, nesse de 2000 a 2022. Então, eu queria agradecer ele. Toda sexta-feira eles têm um ritual, que é uma caipirinha com pão de queijo. Toda sexta. Eu vou levar ele aqui no Boitatá, porque eu não consigo no mercado central, mas para ele comprar cachaça, né, mineira e pão de queijo. Então, pão de queijo. E queijo. Sunset or embodied. Now you close you have 50 minutes, 20 minutes for restarting, okay? Thank you.
Hoje não dá para ver. Não dá, né? Como é que a gente faz? A gente não vai se ver da demanda porque.
Uai, vamos muito.
E às vezes teve para preparar. Aí cheio de coisa interessante.
Ajuda aqui. Alguns. É coisa boa. Eu gosto
Beijo, viu? Tchau, gente. Obrigada. Eu deixei de
Vai levando ele.
Ele é pro computador também.
Aqui, ó, vocês conseguem ligar isso aí. Essas extensões.
Quem pega muito, né? Entendeu?
Porque vai que a gente fala ali, eu vou ficar mexendo toda hora. Onde tem espaço para o lá? Ou que atrás dele? Ai, tá tampando um pouco. Chegou pra cá. Isso. Bom? Tá. Dá pra chegar um pouco pra frente. Bom?
Isso, é o institucional do inglês que ela pediu no ano passado. Se puder salvar ele, é o inglês, você bota assim, vídeo, UFMG, institucional. Não é esse, não é? É o mesmo? Tá. Então, peraí. Quando chegar lá,
welcome back, you all. Before we start again the meeting, I just would like to give you a short notice. If you haven't registered your presence of today's meeting, please scan the QR code in the table in the entrance of the room, or you can talk to one of our staff members. Now we are going to present a short video.
The most important universities in Brazil. UFMG is located in the state of Minas Gerais, which is Brazil's second most populous state, located in the country's southeastern region. There is a lot to discover and explore in Minas Gerais: history, nature, adventures, culture, and diversity. Belo Horizonte is the capital city of Minas Gerais. It has been considered one of Brazil's best cities to live in. Belo Horizonte is a technological hub and has been designated a city of gastronomy by the UNESCO Creative Cities Network. It is also host to Brazil's largest and most sophisticated culture complex. UFMG is considered to have the best teaching in Brazil, and it is one of the best universities in Latin America. Many foreign students come to UFMG from all corners of the world.
If you study here, you will have more opportunity to do with the high technology research.
And the teachers and the professors were really always helping us, always giving us the time that we need, always there for us.
Me ha encantado el trato de las personas, la comida, la amabilidad.
Porque o povo mineiro é muito caloroso, né? Então eu fui muito bem recebida na UFMG.
Do you speak Portuguese? If not, don't worry. UFMG offers Portuguese classes for foreigners, as well as regular academic courses taught in English and in Spanish. And students can rely on UFMG's vast support and reception network. The university's international dimension is also impressive, having several regional study centers and partnerships with countless universities across the world. But we don't only excel at academics. High-level athletes also train at UFMG. In fact, its sports training center hosted foreign delegations during the 2016 Olympics. UFMG boasts several former presidents of Brazil among its alumni, as well as many other important people. Here you'll make friends for life. Come join UFMG. We hope to see you soon.
Now, I would like to invite once more the coordinator of the Laboratory of Cellular and Molecular Genetics, Professor Dr. Vasco Azevedo.
I speak 20 short minutes after Philippe Legelau will talking, give his talking, and okay, yeah, I'm Vasco Azevedo. I would like to thank for the organizer, Flávia, and my other people helping me a lot of everything for this meeting. And I'm here calm and cool because did everything twice. And you introduced my university. I did. Here, my lab, and some research done with my French. Mes français. Okay. I love it. Hold on. And what I do is the idea of I talk is science you do collaboration. For example, one day in 1998, I explained. Oh, I did my Master of Science in France in 1988. In 1989, 1993, I met Philippe Angela and Leloir. And I never stopped to work together. Of course, I was starting molecular biology in 1989, 89. After I moved to genetics and genomics. And that's very important because what I do in my base is I did my all formation in France. Okay? And I learned science in France. And in 1998, Philippe Angela, Pascal Serrault, and Emmanuel Marin arrived in Brazil. And they gave the first class, the first course of genetic manipulation of lactic acid bacteria. This is the first really in Brazil. You are the pioneer in Brazil. Okay? And in 2000, in this course, every night, Philippe, Pascal, and Emmanuel write a capsule with me, and you apply the first capsule. Since 2000 and 2022, you have 1, 2, 3, 4 capsule. And that's a very important picture here. This data is you can see here. Anderson Yosh, the first student, he did the PhD in microbiology, okay? And he did, I said, my first student. This Philippe is very happy, but it's not happy really, because even the law leaves his first student leave his lab. And he will inside very, very sad. Okay, that's true. Completely lost. Okay? And in 2002, now we close 5 years, but I hope I can renew the new year, and everything is done by the French side to renew this. And during the pandemic, you send students, you do the publication, everything is done. Okay, and the year is very interesting because when we leave, Philippe, it is amplified the collaboration with me because now Yves is the head of STLO. Philippe is head of one the big team in Michaelis. Okay, she will show in the next presentation. And that's this year we did a lot of things together, the webinar. I don't remember exactly how many Brazilians do the participation, but I think about 20 or 17. 85 Brazilian students and scientists is the webinar because COVID, it's changed everything. And you have here a more than 100 scientific papers together. Every student, for example, he go to genetics, microbiology, or bioinformatics. They lead the team of Philippe, Jean-Marc, Eric, avec one paper first author, at least. Okay? And it's very fun. Sometimes you say, oh, I invite Philippe to write a paper. And he said, okay, it's a Brazilian Journal of Biology and Medical Research. 2 people Pascal, my boss, and Emmanuel said, no, have no impact factor, no could be met. This paper, open, have a huge impact in Philippe's career because Luis Bermudez arrived about that, the Chinese people arriving in his lab, and he had a lot of citation. I don't remember the number, but had a lot of citation. That sometimes you need to do. You not think of the profit faster. This is a very important journal for the French. It's the CNR journal. This is a contemporary history of research. They talk about us. Now we have 22 years together, but 17 years together. And we wrote this paper and organized what you did during 70 years. Okay? And it's very impressed and when compared with the other two. Okay? This is my trial of science. This is a very interesting. Every people has the Latsko CV, you can have this three. They have my supervisor, Duska List, Pascal Serrault, Master Jacqueline Bernard, and me in my students, Master and PhD. In this moment, because I'm with the French, I have 75 Master and 54 Doctor graduates. And I would like to say, I'm very a lot of emotion now because Flavia is the first bioinformatician in this school here, in the Veterinária school. She did the cotutela thesis, okay, and in the first cotutela thesis in bioinformatics program, the first professor in the Veterinária school. This place I helped to create with Professor Henrique, Decano of Fidel, in Figueiredo. And during 4 years, you prepare the profile. And I'm happy that the veterinary school understand the importance of bioinformatics. And today, the Animash director showed the importance of data science, data mining, and treated the data. Okay? And my lab now is 44 people, and I have 2 secretaries. Fernandez is my technician, but she's a doctor yesterday. Okay, and this I said my lab is a school lab. Okay, you need to train people. Have the postdoc helping me a lot, like Luis Lima yesterday, and a PhD student, Master of Science. This is a very interesting thing. It's only in Brazil you have, I think, is training the undergraduate students all time during the course. When they arrive in Master of Science, they are able to do everything in the bench. And it's a few years ago, and me, I'm the coordinator. Then Malia is now helping me to coordinate the bioinformatics of my lab. He's a full professor, with for I'm full professor in my lab. And I divide my team into dry and wet. Dry is the people who work with bioinformatics, and wet the people who work with. I joke with the old hockey band, Brazilian. This is my 5 years ago, or 3 years ago, I don't remember that. The 21 year of my lab with my daughter, my wife, and my family, and my wife, and the people here in the 20 years. It's a very nice moment when the foreign students arrive. I mean, really very happy. Now I talk a little bit about science. And what I do, I do genomics, I do masters of materials, and I do molecular biology, immunology, a little bit with when you use lactic acid bacteria. Okay? We started a few years ago with probiogenomics. Luis Lima and Rodrigo, Professor Rodrigo from UFMG. He's no more like Flavia Hasman. He will talk about the probiogenomics. It's very interesting now because you can have new insights for the molecular mechanism with the probiotics. Of course, you need to see safety, but they will talk, I think, in the Thursday. And I am talking today only about this, the second line of my area of my research. Okay? This is improve the use of lactic bacteria in biotechnology. Okay? Of course, this started with Capsicum several years ago. And Anders Mjölnir did it for me. This I love this because the Japanese they like I don't remember the name of it. This is American baseball. Yeah, a lot of baseball. I can't talk with the trees base. Okay, I want to talk about no GMO probiotic strain. Why I choose that, I explain you in the next slide. But you did a lot of work with Philippe Langelani, GMO. They have in France called the Atelier in his lab. It's very important because you are a pioneer too in building plasmid, manipulating the genome of lactic acid bacteria. And now Philippe will talk about next generation probiotic in the next presentation. And with Jean-Marc, you work a lot of DNA vaccine. I think the hundreds of papers impact a lot of my life. The Jean-Guy, when yesterday I see the hundreds of papers, it's the Manin Leblanc, Jean-Guy Leblanc, Jean-Marc, everything is very nice for the life. And yes, when you have if you try to isolate every time, it's like streptomyces, you can find activity in the plant. You never stop. I don't know how many is the cell collection, but I think it's a huge collection, like the French collection in the Inflams. Okay? But probiotics is very important now. Okay? And of course, you try to search the strain of the natural and the clear probiotic property. Sometimes I want to know what is the probiotic property. Because it's a lot of things for promote the health. And, but when you think about inflammation, when you think about the health of gut health, you see this is important. The probiotic has this activity and inhibition of pathologic growth, increase epithelial type junction, and modify intestinal permeability, secret antimicrobial products that compose luminal pathogen antigen, and modulate immune response. That's interesting. But today, I choose only to show one experiment. This is about cheese. Okay? This idea is not my idea, but it's did with Estelio. Okay? Development and evaluation of the therapeutic effect of potential probiotic cheese in a marine model of ulcerative colitis. This idea started the concept with Ignacio Jean, and maybe he will come next year to work with Flavia in the veterinary school. And the idea started with a French cheese, Emmental, with a bactéria Propionicum bacteria frederaci 139. This is a model in Guiana labs. You did the mice experiment. This is very important because you receive the French students when you have seen the Brazilian students. It's very nice. The hypothesis of the work is, the question is the cheese can have the food cup. I will incorporate the potential probiotic bacteria, incorporate in a cheese matrix, can be used to develop functional food capable of alleviating ulcerative colitis symptoms. I choose not speak with colitis, not speak with the bacteria, only show the idea, okay? But I follow functional food. The idea is to develop a functional food. You see, you have several, for example, this is a functional food, food in natural process that contain compounds that provide beneficial effect in addition to nutritional effect. In a way, it is relevant to improve the health status and well-being of the consumer. So, this is a link the functional food and probiotics. Okay? And you see, you have a kombucha in Brazil is the vogue now. You see, as the moment the people tell a lot of kombucha. In the other, the probiotics will grow a lot in this moment in Brazil. Maybe for the animals, pets, human. The idea is cheap, because Brasileiros produce a lot of cheese, and the idea is the fresh or matured product that's obtained. This is a cheese that by passear separate the whey from the milk, coagulate in physical action of the corn and enzymatic specific enzyme, specific bacteria, all the quality suited for use. This is the market. Brazil is the sole largest in the world. I think France is the first. And state of Minas Gerais produce 25% of the Brazilian cheese. The best cheese is produced here in the United States. The market is very huge, 140 billion reais. And the production of 1 million tons in the 2013. Okay. I try to say this product, but you see it's very nice for the health, high nutrition, you have vitamin B12, calcium, the mineral, phosphorus, potassium, protein. Is a very good. But for this is a very nice market for protect the bacteria. Okay, and you have the good. They have low water activity, high pH, low oxygen, good buffering capacity, and you do the microencapsulation. You see, of course, you have the problem extrinsic about the processing, storage, transit in the gut, if you see this express, but however, increase the bacterial viability, and then you can try to do therapeutic effect. This paper is very important because you have several Brazilian, several French, and the students is Wayne, okay, and Barbara. I want you to mark this name, okay? Do this work with the people from my lab, Rodrigo, in this moment, Sarah, Emiliano, and the people from Ana Maria Caetano, Denise Carmona, who did the I said, why not do with the French or the United States cheese? That's that after this training with Emmental, you change to Minas Gerais. And I invited this guy from Rio de Janeiro. He produced the cheese for us. They use a bacteria que Ana Caetano will talking about this bacteria a lot. And why I choose not speak about that, the NCD 2118. The idea is use Minas Frescal cheese, or fresh Minas cheese. These are very well for health. They have low fat cheese. They very short maturation and high fuel. The cost is very, very low for production. Okay, the life is short. The life of this cheese is very short. And you did the collide experiment. I don't explain also the light experiment today because the people you're talking during all moments in the meeting. Okay? What happened? You did the experiment, you induced collide with DSS, after you gave the garbage with 250 milligrams of Minas Vertical, and you kill to the euthanasia day 7. And Barbara is the first author of this paper in Frontier with my French colleagues. And I'm so happy with her thesis because she won the best thesis given in 2021. You compete for CAPES Prize for thesis and the UFMG Grand Prize next Thursday at 7 p.m. in the building of UFMG residence. And Lucy, I can have his work with now intellectual property in the university, have a position also, and that's very important because it's really the complementary work between my lab, my university, and the French in Halle. And thanks so much. And I hope you understand me because never people understand me. I joke with Steve, Oscar Wilde also because he made my Gaston. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Professor Vasco, for your presentation. Now I'm pleased to invite the Vice Director of the Vitalis Institute in Juí, Dr. Felipe Congelado.
So it's a pleasure for me to be here. And I love to come to Brazil since 1998 because we are not only colleagues, as you have understood, but we are also very, very good friends. And it was very emotional this morning to hear Yves saying that I'm a kind of father of this very fruitful collaboration between UFMG and our two INRA laboratories. But I would like to mention that I'm not the only one father, we are two fathers, and Vasco is also the other father of this very fruitful collaboration, because we have we know each other since 34 years, and we have started this very fruitful collaboration 24 years ago, 24 years ago. And I'm very happy to see how we have progressed in terms of the potential use of traditional and next generation probiotics for human health. And I was very impressed also to see how Vasco was smart enough to adapt all these strategies, like the last PhD work that he has mentioned. So to adapt all this strategy to the Brazilian tissue, and this is very important. So I just want to mention that the 1998 was the first year of my professional coming in Brazil, and it was a very important year for our scientific collaboration. But I just would like to mention that I'm a soccer fan, and I'm a fan of French league especially, and this year was also a very important year for French national team, less for yours. And I remember it was not very, I was not very smart when I went to Chapuis restaurant with a French suit, a French football team suit, and I remember some of your people in the restaurant were not very happy, but after this we took a very nice picture all together and it was okay. So, now I will move to the scientific part of my talk. And first, I would like to present my team. And so, my team is called the Probiot Lab for interactions of commensal and probiotics microorganisms with the host. And as Vasco said, this laboratory is located in Michaelis Institute, and Michaelis Institute is a huge institute composed of 35 people, including around 200 permanent people, and we are dedicated to microbiology, food, and health. So now I will move. So this is the organization of my team. And so we are the biggest team of the Michaelis Institute. And in fact, we are here it is. So we are around 60 persons in our lab, and we are organized in four groups. So one is dedicated to probiotics, commensal, and inflammation, and it's headed by Luis Bermudez. I forgot to mention that the deputy director of my lab is Jean-Marc Chatel, who is also the co-director of the International Associated Lab. So he's also responsible of a research group in our team dedicated to immunomodulation of the host. After this, we have also a third group headed by Harry Sokol, who is a gastroenterologist in Hôpital Saint-Antoine in Paris, and his group is dedicated to the study of immunity and intestinal microbiota, and I will show you some very interesting results obtained in this group. And the fourth group is headed by Muriel Thomas, and is dedicated to microbiota and digestive and respiratory health. And so we are not working only on the gut microbiota in my lab, and we are also working on the gut-lung axis, and you will see that we have obtained very recently very interesting results on this. And concerning all the recombinant lactic acid bacteria mentioned several times by Vasco, we have a kind of platform in order to engineer both commensal and probiotic bacteria, because we saw that now we have acquired a very huge expertise to manipulate lactic acid bacteria and many probiotic bacteria, and the next challenge will be how to manipulate our commensal bacteria. And this is a very big challenge, not easy to handle. And so in our lab, we have started to manipulate this kind of very difficult bacteria to work with. And we have also another platform where we are isolating and characterizing novel commensal bacteria. So our roadmap for the next 2 years are analysis of the crosstalk between host and microbiota, and our four major objectives are the following one. We will go on to study the intestinal, pulmonary, vaginal, and skin ecosystems to identify beneficial effects on the host and their mechanisms of action. But our main concern is the intestinal microbiota, to explore the immune and phytological responses of the host to commensals and probiotic bacteria and fungi also, because we have a very dynamic scientist in our lab called Matthias Lavirisha, who is an expert also of yeast and fungi in different nutritional contexts, to study the host microbiota crosstalk through diet and supplementation with probiotics, prebiotics, and/or symbiotics, and to integrate, very important, our work into issues of physiology as birth and aging and physiopathology. And so we are working a lot on inflammation, but also on cancer, asthma, and obesity, to move towards research translational and propose prevention and therapy strategies based on these microorganisms. So concerning the key result, the first key result of my lab is what we call the live bacterial biotherapeutics for human and animal health. So in fact, we are trying to use commensal bacteria of our gut microbiota in order to prevent and to treat human and animal diseases. So in my talk, I will speak about Faecalibacterium prosnitzii, and Jean-Marc will also speak about this, our commensal bacterium model, and we will show how we have deciphered the mechanism of action of this commensal bacterium to prevent and to treat IBD. And you will see that we have also now novel therapeutic indications for this bacteria. And I will show you also how we have used commensal lactobacilli producing AHR ligand tryptophan metabolites to prevent and to treat IBD. So concerning the recombinant lactic acid bacteria mentioned by Vasco, so we are also working on the use of recombinant lab to deliver molecules of health interest. And for example, Jean-Marc has succeeded to deliver the cDNA of the MAM protein of Faecalibacterium prosnitzii, and he was able to show that this MAM protein was probably one of the main beneficial effector of Faecalibacterium prosnitzii. And here, what we have done, we have constructed a biocontained strain of lactobacilli, which is able to secrete the human antiprotease elafine. And we have observed, in collaboration with Nathalie Verniol, that in IBD patients, you have a disequilibrium between the proteolytic and antiproteolytic activity. And in this case, they have less antiproteases. And our idea is to provide these human antiproteases using recombinant lactic acid bacteria. And you can see that at least in mice, it worked perfectly well. Here you have the intestinal epithelium of mice, non-inflamed mice. You have the intestinal epithelium of inflamed mice. So you can see that you have a huge proteolytic activity in green. The same with the inflamed mice fed with empty lactobacilli, and with the elafine lactobacilli, you can see that the inflamed mice has recovered the health status of non-inflamed mice. So concerning the gut microbiota and tryptophan metabolism in health and disease, this is the second key result that I would like to mention in the presentation of my lab. And as you can see, we have shown that this tryptophan metabolism has a huge impact in IBD patients, but also in metabolic syndrome. And in fact, what we have observed in these two patients is that they have a deficit in tryptophan metabolism in their gut microbiota. So our idea was to complete this deficient gut microbiota using commensal bacteria able to produce tryptophan metabolites, and we have shown that this was very efficient. And this was done in the frame of a very competitive grant obtained by Escola, which is a European Research Council starting grant. So, concerning the publication since 6 years, we have published 165 publications, and we have an average impact factor of 5 to 5.7. 15% of our articles are published in high-ranking journals like Nature Med, Nature Review Gastroenterology, Hepatology, Nature Biotech, Gut, Fence Microbiome Review. So we have filed also 16 patents, and which is what is very interesting. Among these 16 patents, 11 was filed by our team, and 5 were licensed not this year, since 2016. 3 with Excellium Biosciences, which is our startup company, 1 with Boehringer Ingelheim, and 1 with Satpari Sake. And we have also co-founded in 2018 a startup company. So the co-founders of this company is Escola, Patrick Gervais, one of my colleagues and friend who is expert in the industrial production of F-Pro, and myself. And so we have created it 6 years ago, but we succeeded to raise funds only 4 years ago. So that's why I'm saying that we have this startup functional only since 4 years. And the goal of Excellium is to produce our model F. bacterium as a drug that we will administer in a clinical trial in IBD patients. At this time, we have raised 20 million euros until now, and we've just started our phase 1/2b human clinical trial in September 2022. So concerning our main international collaboration, as you can see, we have a huge collaboration with our friends on Vasco, and also with our Argentinian friends, Jean-Guy Leblanc, who is here, and also with Rami Kravier and David Skurnik in USA. David Skurnik now is back in France. With Canada, in McMaster University, and also in Calgary University, but also in Australia and in Japan, and naturally in Europe. And we have also many industrial contracts. So for example, in the period of 2030 to 2020, we have something like 6 million euros of industrial contract, and you can see that we have several partners with human probiotics, animal probiotics, human prebiotics, and also human next generation probiotics with startups like Enteron and Excellium Biosciences. So concerning the different projects of the group, so the group 1 headed by Luis Bermudez, they are using beneficial bacteria to prevent and to treat human diseases. So he's using probiotic bacteria, recombinant bacteria, and commensal bacteria. And our aim for the next 5 years will be to evaluate the efficacy of our approaches in both humans and animals with partners like already mentioned, and to analyze also the effect of the alteration of the vertical microbiome transmission mother-newborns. So, concerning the work performed in the group headed by Jean-Marc, so Jean-Marc is mainly working on S. mechanism of action, And as he will show you, he's working a lot on the diversity of Fecalibacterium prosmitzi, on genetic manipulation of ephra, and on structure-activity relationships. But he is also very active in the gut-muscle axis, and he recently published a very interesting paper, which is just released on PubMed, on a strep thermophilus strain, which has a protective effect on sarcopenia in all rats. And he's also working very actively on antimicrobial peptides, and he's working with, he's looking for their different anti-inflammatory properties, direct effect on microbiota composition, and working on other models. So now I will move to, I have finished the presentation of my lab, and I will move to our recent results obtained in our lab on the use of commensal bacteria in human health. So what I forgot to mention is that our laboratory is located near Paris and Versailles, in a very nice countryside region. And as you can see, we are located between Versailles Castle, which is here, at 5 kilometers, and Eiffel Tower, which is at 12 kilometers from here. So our location is very good. Even if you are coming to our lab to work, you know that you can go to Paris and Versailles very easily. So my outline will be probiotics, the gut microbiota and human health, and then I will show you the Fecalibacterium prosmitzi story with very recent new results, and I will do the same with commensal tryptophan metabolizer story, and then I will conclude. So who are the probiotics? So the probiotics, based on the definition of ISAP of 2014, they are live microorganisms that, when administered in adequate amounts, confer a health benefit on the host. So they are used until now to prevent pathologies, so in healthy people, and not very well, very frequently used in sick patients, sick people. So they are used until now to prevent pathology and to maintain in good health humans and animals. So mainly you will find either lactobacilli with these 5 species, Acidophilus, KZI, Johnsoni, Rhamnosus, and Cantharon, and you will find also Bifidobacteria, Animalis, Longum, Bifidum, Brevet, and Lactis. We will also find some strains, because all these properties are strain specific. You cannot take, for example, any Lactobacillus KZI strain and claiming that it will have probiotic properties. You should work on it to see whether it has these probiotic properties. So other lactic acid bacteria, where you can find some probiotic bacteria. So I've already mentioned the strep thermophilus against sarcopenia of Jean-Bart. We are also able to find probiotic strains in Enterococcus fecalis and E. faecium, in E. coli, in Bacillus subtilis, and probiotic bacteria. So the first probiotic food supplement was created by Ilya Ilyich Mechnikov, with a Russian Nobel Prize, and he went to work in Pasteur Institute, and he was the first to have the idea to lyophilize some lactobacilli in order to prevent intestinal diarrhea. And then the story said that he used to go to buy some fermented milk in a shop, which was held by a guy called Daniel Carasso, and the story said that the meeting between Daniel Carasso and Ilya Ilyich Mechnikov has induced the creation of Danone Company. Okay, and I think it's true, because when you are going to Danone Company office, this story, you have this story in the intro. So the major health benefits of probiotics, lactose digestion, modulation of gut microbiota, integrity of intestinal barrier, especially in irritable bowel syndrome patients, pathogens inhibition, especially prevention and treatment of antibiotics-associated diarrhea and rotavirus, modulation of immune system, warning, the effects are strain and food matrix specific. I said that they are strain specific, but the effects of this strain will also depend on the nature of the culture medium. And this point was raised yesterday during the thesis. And in fact, the importance of the growth culture medium is essential to get and to analyze beneficial effects of bacteria. So this is, in fact, a copy of the previous slide, and I would just like to mention that we have also some preclinical and clinical trials which are performed on the gut-brain axis, on the gut-lung axis, and several effects have been established in the frame of human clinical trials. Because the difficulty of the probiotic domain is that you can find very impressive and significant results in vitro models, in preclinical models, and then you have to move to human and to prove that these effects could be transposed in humans. So concerning the domain of traditional and next generation probiotics, I think that this slide extracted from the review of Paul O'Toole in 2017 is very clear. On the left side of my side of my slide, you have traditional probiotics. So they are characterized by long history of use. You can find bifidobacteria, lactobacilli, some strains of E. coli, and some strain of the yeast Saccharomyces boulardii, especially the one commercialized by Biocodex company, which is very well documented on the scientific points. So, concerning what we call the live biotherapeutics or next generation probiotics, in contrast, they have no history of use, and the keystone species, the best documented commensal bacteria are Akkermansia mucinifila, Bacteroides, and Fecalibacterium prosmutzi. And in this category of live biotherapeutics, you will find also what we call recombinant lactic acid bacteria. Okay? And the difference then will be that these probiotics are found in functional food and food supplements, and in contrast, all the commensal bacteria or recombinant lactic acid bacteria, they are found as a under a live form. In Europe, they are only authorized in drug products. Okay, so this is a very important point. And if you want to use commensal bacteria in a product in Europe, you should test them as inactivated form. For example, you can pasteurize them 70 degrees during 15 minutes, and hopefully, if you keep the beneficial effect, you can sell them, put them on the market as a novel food product, you know. So you don't have any live bacteria in your product, you have pasteurized form, which are still active. And my friend Patrice Cani, who has intensively worked on Akkermansia mucinifila, which is a commensal bacteria, which is absent from obese and diabetic patients. In fact, they are starting to sell in Europe inactivated forms of Akkermansia mucinifila that you can buy on Amazon since last September. So, concerning the genetically manipulated engineered lab, they are good bugs to deliver proteins of health interest. For at least two reasons, they could possibly induce both mucosal and systemic immune responses, and they could be, if they are biocontained, they are safe, easy to administer, and they have low production cost. So we can conclude that these genetically modified lactic acid bacteria or recombinant lactic acid bacteria are excellent proof of concept tools for human health and potential novel preventive and therapeutic tools for the future. So, concerning the gut microbiota, I would like to show you the phylogenetic diversity of the gut microbiota. So, mainly we can consider that the gut microbiota is composed of two major phyla, Firmicutes, which are mainly gram-positive bacteria, and Bacteroidetes, which are mainly gram-negative bacteria. And these two phyla represent between 80 to 90% of our microbiota. And so today, I will speak about only of Firmicutes, as I will speak about Faecalibacterium prasinci and Lactobacilli. But you can see that in the phylum of Actinobacteria, you can find Bifidobacteria. In the phylum of Proteobacteria, you can find E. coli strains. And in the phylum of Bacteroides, you can find Bacteroides tetaiota omicron. So, now I would like to introduce a very important concept, which is the dysbiosis of the gut microbiota. So, in fact, in the upper side of my slide, you have what we can observe in healthy people. So in healthy people, you have a good equilibrium, which is called also eubiosis, a good equilibrium between good guys in your gut microbiota called symbionts and potential bad guys, which are called pathobionts. And in this case, so you have a good equilibrium, and it's associated with a good immunological equilibrium, and everything is fine at this time. If you move to dysbiosis situation, in this case, you will have a decrease of good guys, population level, and you will have an increase of bad guys, okay, of pathobionts, and this disequilibrium will induce an immunological disequilibrium, and you will have the initiation of inflammation process. So, the dysbiosis of gut microbiota and human diseases, you can see that it has been associated very, the first who have associated human diseases and gut microbiota dysbiosis were our friend of Hôpital Saint-Antoine in Paris, Laurent Bochery, who is the boss of Escola, and in 2004, he was able to show that in the antibiotic-associated diarrhea patients, they have a dysbiosis, okay? And after this, with Philippe Sexy, Escola, and Laurent Bochery, we performed the same observation in inflammatory bowel disease patients, and in both Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis patients, as you can see here. After this, my colleague Willem de Vos in 2011 have shown the same dysbiosis in irritable bowel syndrome, and you can see that these dysbioses have been observed in behavior troubles, in pouchitis, in metabolic syndrome, in allergy, autism, colorectal cancer, HIV infection, and more recently in two respiratory infections that I will, we have worked on these two respiratory infections, and I will show you some very interesting results. But you can see that, for example, in people infected with the influenza virus, you can observe dysbiosis, and more recently in SARS-CoV-2 hospitalized patients, we have also observed dysbiosis. Okay. So, concerning the dysbiosis, two main features are observed in this microbiota dysbiosis. You have a decrease of the bacterial diversity and the disappearance of keystone commensal species as Faecalibacterium, Akkermansia, or Christensenella. And we have also an increase of the intestinal permeability and the appearance of a low-grade inflammation status. So, to summarize, the roles of gut microbiota in human health they will be very close from the ones I showed concerning probiotics. So it will impact the barrier functions, the metabolic function, the gut-brain axis, the immune functions. It will help to protect against pathogens and the role in diseases. I have shown in the previous slide the association between these viruses and human diseases. So what we can imagine is that it could be a kind of source of next generation probiotics rationally selected on the basis of human clinical data. And so we have done this, and we have introduced a kind of new strategy to identify novel beneficial bacteria based on these biases. So on the left panel of my slide, you have the classical strategy used in all around the world to select novel probiotic strains. So in my lab, we are doing this. We are starting from a panel of 50 to 100 bacterial candidates. We are screening them in cellular and animal models in order to select 1 to 3 novel potential traditional probiotic strains that we are using in testing in preclinical models. In this case, what we have introduced, in fact, is the dysbiosis strategy to select next generation probiotics, and it's far from lighter because, in fact, you just have to detect the dysbiosis by comparing healthy and patients' microbiota, and this way you can identify some good guys or bad guys which will be absent or present in these two microbiota. So we did this to find Faecalibacterium prosciuttii, and Patrice Cami did the same for Akkermansia mucinifera. And after this, you just have to validate your strain in cellular and animal models. So concerning Faecalibacterium prosciuttii, so I think that Jean-Marc will tell you that the taxonomy of Faecalibacterium prosciuttii has changed. So our model strain A2165 is no more Faecalibacterium prosciuttii strain, but Faecalibacterium duncaniae, and it's a gram-positive bacillus, member of the phylogenetic core, the most abundant and ubiquitous commensal bacteria. In fact, if you are healthy people, you can consider that you have in your gut microbiota between 5 to 15% of your gut microbiota, which will be composed of Faecalibacterium bacteria. It's a major member of the Clostridium lepton group cluster 4. It's a huge butyrate producer, and as you know, the short-chain fatty acids, they have a huge impact on positive impact on the human health, and it's extremely oxygen sensitive, so you should work in anaerobic chamber without any trace of oxygen. So, in fact, we have published this paper in 2008, and now we can consider that it's a kind of landmark paper because it's among the 10 most cited papers in the gut microbiota domain. So we are around at 2,500 citations on the Web of Knowledge and more than 600 citations on Google Scholar. And what we did was very simple after this. We just compared the microbiota of Crohn's disease patients in remission or in relapse. And we showed that the patients in remissions have a higher population levels of Faecalibacterium prosciuttii in contrast to relapse patients, as you can see. So we were able to establish a relation between IBD recurrence and decrease of S prosciuttii in Crohn's disease patients. And so you can see that 6 months after the surgery, these patients have no endoscopic recurrence, they are in remission, and they have a high population level of S prom. And so these observations suggest that Faecalibacterium prosciuttii could have anti-inflammatory effects. And so we have confirmed this, that both the bacterium and its supernatant have protective effects, as you can see here. So we have tested in IBD models where we have induced an inflammation in mice. So you can see that the scores of the macroscopic scores are significantly lower in mice fed with the bacterium and the supernatant. The same for histological scores, and we have shown that we have less pro-inflammatory cytokine secretion, and in contrast, higher anti-inflammatory cytokine secretion. So now we can consider that Faecalibacterium prostate is a bacterium involved in dysbiosis. So we have shown in IBD, but since these findings, it has been shown in other intestinal diseases like colorectal cancer and irritable bowel syndrome. And so we can consider that FPRO is a sensor of intestinal health. So very recently, what we did, we evaluate the impact of prebiotics on the population level of Faecalibacterium prostate. So the idea was to feed the mice with both with prebiotics or not, and to see whether the population level of FPRO will be impacted by this prebiotic administration. So what we did was very simple. We took human fecal microbiota and we transferred them in germ-free mice. And so this way we have 4 families of human microbiota mice, and you can see that we have D1 with a low population level of FPRO, D2 with medium population level of FPRO, and in D3 and D6 we have a normal population level of FPRO. And what you can see is that in the donor 1 and 2, where the population level of FPRO was low, we can increase the population level of FPRO using these prebiotics. So the ingestion of the resistant starch, which was the prebiotic that we used, induces an increase of FPRO level in low FPRO healthy volunteers, colonized mice. So it's very promising strategy because it's very easy to handle. You just have to feed people with resistant starch and they could increase their population level of FPRO. So what about the translational applications of FPRO? Once you have identified FPRO, you have in fact 3 options. You can do what we did, what I just described, use prebiotics and probiotics to increase Faecalibacterium prostate population, as we did with Claire Cherbury on the previous slide. You can use FPRO as a drug or novel food, as Patrice Cadic did with Akkermansia. And we can also use the secreted molecules as postbiotics and drugs. I told you that with Jean-Marc, we have identified the MAM protein, and so we can imagine also to administer to IBD patients, for example, the MAM protein. So now I will move to the very recent results that we got with Faecalibacterium prostate. And in fact, what we did, we have explored the impact of Faecalibacterium prostate in the gut-lung axis, because as you can see, in people infected with virus, we can observe dysbiosis microbiota, increase of permeability, and decrease of some metabolites. And so the idea was to see whether the beneficial bacteria or the metabolites could help to restore this dysbiosis. And so you can see this work has been performed in François Trottin's lab in Pasteur Institute in Lille, and they have evaluated the impact of influenza virus infection on the microbiota and on the short-chain fatty acid production. And as you can see, in fact, you have a huge decrease of the short-chain fatty acids in infected mice compared to non-infected mice, as you can see here. Okay? And what they have shown also, they have shown that administration of acetate could protect the infected bacteria with the influenza virus from the bacterium overinfection that we can find in influenza virus patients, with bacterial over-infections. And so the idea was to test the impact of probiotics. So they have also shown that they have a modification of the microbiota and short-chain fatty acid production in hamsters infected by SARS-CoV-2. So on the previous slide, the results was on influenza virus infected mice, and here they have shown that they have also a dysbiosis in the gut microbiota of hamsters infected by SARS-CoV-2. And you can see that you have a huge decrease of Rhamnococcus, Lactospiraceae, Eubacterium. So you have a kind of huge dysbiosis. So what we would like to test with François Trottin is to test the Faecalibacterium prostate administration and to see whether we have an impact on the weight loss and some clinical parameters. So we have administered during 10 days Faecalibacterium prostate, and after 5 days we have infected with influenza virus, and so we have administered 10 to the 9 bacteria per day, and you can see that using the Faecalibacterium, the mice infected fed with Faecalibacterium prostate, they have smaller weight loss, as you can see here, and you can see that we have a significant lower weight loss in the mice fed with Faecalibacterium. No. I'm wrong. So you have higher weight loss in the mice infected with influenza virus, and with Faecalibacterium prostate, the impact was not significant. Okay? After this, we have tried to evaluate the impact of Faecalibacterium prostate administration on the viral load, and very surprisingly, we showed that the viral load was significantly reduced in the mice fed with Faecalibacterium prostate, as you can see. And we have also showed that we have a better restoration of the immunopathology in the gut in the mice infected with the virus and treated with Faecalibacterium prostate. After this, we would like to see whether this Faecalibacterium prostate administration could interfere with the infection with Streptococcus pneumoniae, the other infection that I have mentioned. And as you can see here, in fact, you can see that we have a level of strep pneumoniae which is reduced in the group with S. brown, and we have so in the lung and also in the spleen. So apparently, we have beneficial effect of administration of S. brown in 2 models, the primary infection with influenza virus and also with the other infection with strep pneumoniae. So what we can conclude is that S. prostate administration could decrease the viral load and clinical symptoms with the restoration of the pulmonary integrity. It has decreased the expression of genes associated to viral infection and to associated inflammation in both lungs and colon, and it could prevent the bacterial overinfection. And now I will move to gut dysbiosis in COVID-19 patients. And as I told you, hospitalized COVID-19 patients had significant alteration in fecal microbiomes compared with controls characterized by enrichment of opportunistic pathogens and depletion of beneficial commensals. And you can see here that you have depletion in Eubacterium, Faecalibacterium prostate, Rospuria, and Lactospiraceae. So, based on this observation, we have this data highlight a new concept that novel and targeted approach of modulation of the gut microbiota may represent a therapeutic avenue for COVID-19 patients and their comorbidities. So this modulation will be performed either with traditional probiotics or next generation probiotics, including fecalibacterium proskinsi. And very interestingly, in the next slide, I will show you the results obtained with FPRAL, but with an industrial partner. We have tested traditional probiotics, and we have also shown very interesting results in hamster infected with SARS-CoV-2. So, to evaluate the impact of the oral administration of FPRO in SARS-CoV-2 infected hamster, so what we did, we performed oral administration of FPRO during 2 weeks, and after 1 week, we have infected them with SARS-CoV-2. And what you can see is that we have a decrease of the viral load, so measured either by qPCR or by viral titration. So the use of FPRO in respiratory infection was patented on September 2021 based on these results. And so now, in the last part of my talk, I will move to tryptophan metabolites, which are major molecules involved in the effect of microbiota on the host. So, as you can see, the tryptophan will be metabolized in what we call AHR agonists or indole derivatives. And what you should know is AHR is a receptor which, once it will be activated, it will induce the secretion of beneficial cytokine like IL-22. And so, in this case, when you have a good tryptophan metabolizers, you can produce AHR agonists and you have intestinal homeostasis. And it was described in 2013. So, what we show is that when you have a deficit of tryptophan metabolizers in gut microbiota, you will have a decrease of AHR agonist indole derivatives, and in this case, the AHR will be less activated, and you will have less IL-22 and higher susceptibility to inflammation. And so we have worked on colitis models and Crohn's disease in patients, and as you can see here, we have tested in these mice, CAR9 knockout mice. We took these mice because, in fact, these mice have a deficit in tryptophan metabolites production by their gut microbiota. And so, as you can see, the CAR9 knockout mice are very susceptible to inflammation, and in contrast to the wild-type mice. And you can see with the green curve is that we have these mice, these CAR9 knockout mice that we have fed with lactobacillus able to produce tryptophan metabolites, and you can see that you have reached the healthy curve of the wild-type mice. And it was confirmed by the measurement of AHR activity, as you can see here. The AHR activity in using these lactobacillus was higher, and we showed also that we have higher IL-22 production. So this work was published in Nature Medicine in 2016, and in fact we showed that CAR9 gene impact colitis by altering gut microbiota metabolism of tryptophan into AHR receptor ligands. And so our main message is that inactivating one gene can shape the gut microbiota and its function. This altered function of this biotic gut microbiota has been observed in IBD patients, and so we can imagine that we can feed these patients with next generation probiotics able to produce these tryptophan metabolites. And so the strains that I have mentioned in the previous slide was isolated from mice ecosystem, and then we tried to isolate from human ecosystem, human gut microbiota, bacterium able to produce a huge quantity of tryptophan metabolites. And as you can see here, we have isolated one, which is called Life Bio Therapeutics AHR. And so we have fed conventional wild-type mice with this strain, and you can see that we have higher activation of AHR target genes. So apparently, this strain was very powerful to produce AHR agonists. And so we have tested it in colitis, and you can see that this strain has a protective effect, as you can see here. And we have also confirmed the hypothesis that these beneficial effects are passing through the AHR activation, because you can see that we have lost the beneficial effect in AHR knockout mice. So you should have AHR active in your mice in order to get positive results with your strain. And so we have also shown that this strain has positive effect in metabolic syndrome also, as you can see here. So this was also an interesting result, and we have shown that the effect was lost in AHR knockout mice. So just to conclude on tryptophan metabolizers, so tryptophan metabolism is a crucial actor in host microbiota crosstalk, and its alternation is involved in IBD, metabolic syndrome. In collaboration with Elena Vertu, McMaster University, we have also shown that it could be involved in celiac disease and also in alcoholic liver disease in collaboration with Gabriel Carmoutet. So the production of AHR agonists by the gut microbiota is one of the most important functions of the gut microbiota. The therapeutic potential in restoring the normal AHR activity in the gut, and LPP with natural ability to produce AHR agonists are attractive candidates. So I would like to mention for these specific tryptophan metabolizers work, I would like to mention Arisocol, Philippe Sexy, and especially the two postdocs who worked on this project, Chloé Michaudel and Alison Agus, who did a fantastic job on these tryptophan metabolizers. And so the future direction of the potential use of commensal bacteria in human health, we should continue the characterization of these promising next generation probiotics and of their mode of action. We would like to compare the effects of single or double strain strategy. We would like to develop genetic manipulation of these bugs and to launch human POC clinical trials, as we did with Excellium, in IBD patients, in IBS, and in metabolic syndrome patients, to use them as drug products, novel food, or food supplements. So for this part on FPROW, I would like to mention especially Arisocol, Jean-Marc Chatel, who will show you his results, Bruno Lamas, who did the job on tryptophan metabolizers in lactobacilli, Luis Bermudez, who is also working on the interaction of Faecalibacterium prosthetic with the host, and Sylvie Miquel and Rebecca Martin did a lot of job on Faecalibacterium prosthetic. So thanks for your attention, and to all the members of Probiotic. Any question? No questions. It was clear. Ari, he has a question.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much
For your presentation. I would like to know the relationship of serotonin production and tryptophan lactobacillus.
It's a very interesting question, and in fact, in the CARB9 knockout mice, we showed that the serotonin metabolism is not impacted. And so that's why we showed that, in fact, the production of tryptophan metabolites by the host was not impacted in these CARB9 knockout mice. The production of tryptophan metabolites by the gut microbiota was only targeted. So the serotonin metabolism is intact in the carnine knockout mice, and apparently it's also intact in obese and IBD people, where we showed that in fact only the tryptophan metabolism by gut microbiota is affected. So, thank you very much. Yes, Rodrigo. Yeah. In French or in English?
In English. Thank you. So, congratulations on an excellent lecture. Yes, perfect. We are working on some sequencing data, with some experiments with colitis with cheese, and we also observed an increase in metabolized activity, and we correlate that it was associated with some components of the microbiome, like some species were contributing more with tryptophan metabolism, and our study identified that acupuncture is one of these genes which most contributes
to tryptophan.
Yes. So I would like to know if you have seen something like this in your data. I think
I'm not sure that in this screening we have screened Akkermansia muciniphila, and I'm not sure that Akkermansia was recognized in our hands to produce many tryptophan metabolites. We found one that I could not mention that because it's still in patenting procedure, but I can tell you that Secalibacterium crosslinsi, for example, is able to produce a lot of tryptophan metabolites and to induce AHR activity. But in your hands, did you measure?
Experiment with mice, so maybe the microbiome.
No, because our first experiments were performed in mice, and so I think it would be interesting. We should discuss, and I will check whether we have tested or not Akkermansia in our screening.
Nice.
We can discuss further. Thank you very much.
Congratulations for
Thank you. Thank you.
I'd like to comment about in Brazil, for example, we observe the resistance for doctor community to use probiotic
in France too. In France too.
In France too.
Ah, yes.
But you showed some results related to patients there. I'd like to comment about there is study to avoid this comment related to probiotic. For example, unlike probiotic, we use some cases.
Okay. So, in fact, the situation that you are describing using on the use of probiotics in humans, in fact, it's also there are a lot of controversial comments in Europe too, because as I told you, in fact, there are only few examples in humans where we were able to show beneficial effects of probiotics. Why? In fact, probiotics, they have been mainly used in healthy people. So in healthy people, it's quite difficult to identify advantages of the probiotic administration. So that's why, in my opinion, now we will probably show more and more beneficial effects of probiotics using them not only in healthy people, but in some patients. For example, in some IBS patients, it could get very interesting results. In antibiotic-associated diarrhea people, they could show very interesting results. For example, in Canada, in fact, now I'm working with a company, with a probiotic company, which is called BioK Plus, and they have succeeded to authorize the use of their probiotic product
in order to prevent antibiotic-associated diarrhea in newborn kids, you know. And so I think it's a good progress, and probably we will have more and more proof of concept of using traditional and next generation probiotics, not only in healthy people, but also in sick people. You're welcome. So, no more questions, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Lajela, for your great presentation. Now, I would like to invite into stage the principal investigator from Micali's Host Immunopopulation Research Line, Dr. Jean-Marc Chatel.
Hello, everyone. Very happy to be here. I started to come in Brazil something like 10 years ago with this beautiful collaboration. And when I started to make my presentation for today, I realized that I gave 4 years ago, 4.5 years ago, for the opening ceremony of the ELIA. I wanted also to talk about Faecalibacterium prolifici, mechanism of action, and biodiversity. That's why there is this little tool here, because I'm going to give you also some updates, and I hope that for those who were there 4 years ago, 4 years and a half ago, you will see that we have made a lot of progress, and you're going to see that it's more and more complicated. And definitely, it's not possible now to work on Faecalibacterium prolifici, on Faecalibacterium, and to avoid the question of the diversity. So I'm from Philip's team, and as Philip made a strong introduction already on FPRO, I will be probably able to skip some of my slides. And as I'm sure you're as angry as I am, so I am going to be probably quicker than I planned. Okay, so this one you have seen it already. So Faecalibacterium, I'm gonna, from time to time, you're gonna hear FPRO, so it's the short name of Faecalibacterium prolifici, but definitely it's quicker. So FPRO is a next generation probiotic, as for example Akkermansia muciniphila. And so you have seen already also these slides, but it's very important, and I'm going to take a little bit of time on this slide because it's just to explain the difficulty to work on these commensal bacteria. Because most of these bacteria are, for example, extremely oxygen sensitive, which means that you have to work on this chamber, so anaerobic chamber, because oxygen for us we need oxygen, but for these bacteria, oxygen is a poison. Oxygen will kill these bacteria. So they are very interesting. It's very powerful and with a lot of possibilities, application, but very difficult to work with. But in the laboratory, we have something like 4 or 5 of these chambers, so very well equipped. So as Philippe said, duty rate producer, one of the best duty rate producer in the microbiota, very abundant. Faecalibacterium prolifici is the second most abundant bacteria in your microbiota. Okay, so it means in your microbiota you have hundreds of different species, and just one of them can make 5% of your total. So it's really, really important. You have seen already this slide, so I'm gonna just say that in 2008, so in this famous paper, Ari was able to describe for the first time the anti-inflammatory effects of FPRO, of the bacteria, but also of the supernatant, and we're gonna come back to this a little bit later. So this is the famous paper. So let's talk about biodiversity of FPRO. The first team who started to work on this question was a Spanish team. So this is the first paper describing two phylogroups. So at this time we were talking about phylogroup because in this study the Spanish guy Lopez Cies, they compared, they analyzed the 16S of FPRO. And so by comparison of the different 16S of different isolates of FPRO, they were able to discriminate between two different groups. So at this time, 10 years ago, FPRO, we could start to see a little bit of diversity. So at least maybe two different species. So we participated also at this study, and 6 years after, Rebecca in our lab also published a paper where also we were able to describe these two phylogroups, so these two putative species. But so it was based on 16S sequence analysis, and so as you know, 16S, it's very difficult to discriminate with good sensitivity, I would say, between bacteria. So this very important paper here has been published by our group, and so as you can see, the first author is Leandro Benevides. So Leandro was a student from Vasco, the first bioinformatician student that Vasco sent us, and he made a very important paper, and he really started the story of the diversity, of the biodiversity of FPRO. So when he arrived in the laboratory, we had, I think, 15 isolates of FPRO. We sequenced the genome of those 15 different isolates, and Leandro made a comparison of these 15 different genomes. And based on this, and 1 year after, Irish, I think they are Irish, the Irish group from Colonial, they made exactly the same study than us, with the same strategy. They included not only 15 genomes, but they included 31 genomes, and they found exactly the same results than us. And the main results here, you can see it's ANI analysis, and this range until 9, something like that. And by doing this comparison, this genomic comparison, you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Also a group of FPRO, let's call them phylogroup of FPRO. And so at this time, so in 2018, so 4 years ago, we could describe 8 phylogroups. And also what was also very important is that those different FPRO are very different. Okay? If you compare one phylogroup to another one, they are FPRO technically, but they are very different. So it means that Faecalibacterium has a huge genome and a small core genome. Another way also to work on the diversity of FPRO is, for example, to have a look to the metagenomic data. So since now 10 years or even 15 years, there is a lot of metagenomic data which are published, and in 2020, an Italian group decided to focus on Faecalibacterium diversity using metagenomic data analysis. So by doing that, they found very interesting results. For example, so they say now that they have 20 species I'd like to add that they looked at metagenomic data from human, pig, dogs, primates, and chicken. So among those different mammals, you can find 22 different species and 12 in human gut. So these are metagenomic species. Okay, so it's based on metagenomic data. But so they added 4 more species in human gut that we have. We have here 8. These Italian claim that we have probably 12. What was also very interesting is that the diversity will vary with the age, geographical localization, lifestyle, then the different species have our different functional potential, and we will come back to this because this was only based on genomic comparison, but I'm going to show you that they are probably right and that the different species harbor different functionalities, and I'm going to come back to this. And what we knew already is that ethnicity diversity is improved by diet, decrease in obesity, as Philippe said, and in inflammatory conditions like in pathology like IBD, IBS, and so on. And in the laboratory at this time, so we have a very talented bioinformatician student from Brazil, Marcus Viana, and he's performing exactly, not exactly, of course, but he's performing the same kind of studies, metagenomic data, analyzing, using another pipeline, other libraries, metagenomic data, and we have increased the number of species from 22 to 81. Okay, so I don't know where we can end to this more and more species, but now in our lab, due to the work of Marcus, we have 81 different species of F4. Remember that 4 years ago we had 1. Okay, so now we have 81. What does it mean? I don't know yet, but it's very, very interesting. So as I said, during these 4 years, it had a lot of publication on these different species, but you have to know that when you look in metagenomic data, you can identify metagenomic species, but for microbiologists, it's just metagenomic species, okay? To really be to have a new name, a species need to be characterized metabolically, genetically, etc., etc. So it's a long process, and you cannot claim like that. Okay, this is a new species. This is a new species. There is a committee, and you have to publish in the right papers. But at this time, we have 6 different species of Faecalibacterium which have been characterized. For example, you have these 2 papers published, I think this year or the year before. So we still have Faecalibacterium rosmiti, Duncaniae, so as Philippe said, the academic strain A2-165 is no more a rosmiti, but it's now Duncaniae. We have also Faecalibacterium hattori, Faecalibacterium gallidae, probably from chicken, of course, Faecalibacterium butyristigenerans, probably because high producer of butyrate, and Faecalibacterium longum may be based on some microscopic, electronic microscopy shape, probably. So, at this time, officially, we have these 6 different species which are characterized, which are also in the public library everywhere in the world. But, so, I'm sure that now you are convinced that there is more than F. rosmiti, at least 6 different, maybe 81. So, but what does it mean? What are the differences between the species? Differences on the growth, for example. What are their anti-inflammatory properties? What are their mechanisms of action? So for example, we have tested in the laboratory. So in the laboratory, we have the 6 different species, and we have tested their growth regarding acetate, for example, and different sugar. Here, we tested Faecalibacterium duncaniae. In blue, it's, let's say, the control curve. So we have OD here, you have the time there. So this is the classical medium without special sugar and without acetate. If you add acetate, you can see that you increase the OD. But if you add acetate and sugar, in here, the fructose sugar, you will increase by almost 3 the biomass of your culture. So it's very important. But if you do the same with Faecalibacterium progeny, okay, you have an increase also, but here you see that the exponential phase with acetate or sugar, the shape is exactly the same. At the end, you have more with acetate, and probably at longer time, you have no effect of the fructose. So the answer, the capacity to metabolize nutrients and to use nutrients between the Duncaniae and F-potency is different. We have the same results with 2 other species. They don't have name yet, but we are developing collaboration with a Japanese guy to taxonomically characterize those 2 species. So, but for the moment, they just have numbers 4540 and 4541. And again, if you look at these different curves and those, they are all different. They react to the nutrients all differently. For example, for the 4541, 4540, there is no differences. You have a huge increase of biomass and no differences. Fructose doesn't change anything. So it's just the beginning of the description of the differences between these species of Faecalibacteria. So both acetate and fructose will increase the OD, the biomass as stationary phase, but each species will react differently to the presence of acetate or acetate and sugar. Okay, so that was pretty important, for example, for production of Faecalibacterium, because Faecalibacterium has a huge potential as next generation probiotic. But what could be the consequences of this diversity on anti-inflammatory properties? Anti-inflammatory properties, I'm going to show you results on mice model of IBD, inflammatory bowel disease, and also my collaboration, I'm going to show you mice results on inflammatory bowel syndrome. Okay, I'm going to start with the IBS. So the model that we use is, I don't know if you can see, but it's a collaboration with a colleague from Clermont-Ferrand in France with Frédéric Carvalho. Frédéric Carvalho is a French scientist studying pain. So he has developed a model called neonatal maternal separation. And to be quick, this NMS model, neonatal maternal separation, will elicit an hypersensitivity, colonic hypersensitivity in mice. So what is this model? To elicit this kind of hypersensitivity, you will separate the pups from the mother at day 2, and you do that during 2 weeks. So you separate the pups 3 hours per day. And by doing that, you can, for example, if you monitor the colonic hypersensitivity in mice, but weeks ago, mice which have been maternally separated and those mice which are control mice, you have weeks after this maternal separation, they develop hypersensitivity, colonic hypersensitivity. Okay? So we're going to use this model of colonic hypersensitivity to see if FOCC can have a protective effect in this model. And we have tested our different needs, something that we have published already a few years ago, the effect of Inflam, by the way. So you can see here the results that we obtained. Here, the mice are not treated with Inflam, and here the mice are treated by Inflam. You decrease the colonic hypersensitivity. If you look at the area under curve, the difference is significant. If you use now, for example, you do exactly the same experiment, but by using another species of Faecalibacterium, Faecalibacterium prosnitzi, you have the same kind of results. Here, mice treated by F. prosnitzi. Here, non-treated, the treated mice, they have a decrease of hypersensitivity. But look at this one, the 45-41. There is no differences between treated and non-treated mice. So it was the first time that we've seen this kind of result, because it was the first time that we used the 45-41. So I don't have time to show you, and it would be a bit boring to show you all the species that we have tested. We have tested the 6 different Faecalibacterium species that we have. The 6 tested so far showed anti-nociceptive properties, except the 45-41. So beyond, among our 6 different species, one has no nociceptive activity. Okay, that was IBS. So let's move. What you have to know is IBS. I was talking about hypersensitivity, but IBS is also characterized by a low-grade inflammation, mainly perturbation in the intestinal permeability, a little bit of some cytokines, some infiltration, but very, very low-grade inflammation. So let's move to something closer from IBD. In the laboratory, we have developed several colitis, chemically induced colitis models, and I'm going to show you one of our model. So it's a model induced by TNBS, and that's, for example, that's a protocol, this kind of the protocol that we use. You induce the colitis by injecting TNBS intrarectally, and mice will start to lose weight almost immediately. One day after, the mice will lose 10% of their weight. So it's a very, very acute colitis model. So the mice are really, really sick. And we sacrifice the mice usually at day 4 or day 3. And in this experiment, we're going to compare mice with colitis and mice with colitis, but treated with the different Faecalibacterium species. We give Faecalibacterium from day -5 to day +3, so 10 to the 9 CFU daily by mice. The main score, the main criteria, the main results I can show you is based on microscopic score. When you kill your mice, you take the colon and you can look at the blood, the ulcer, and different kind of things, and you can make a score. So this is, of course, the control mice. They have absolutely no inflammation. The DNBS mice, so non-treated. Here, the treated mice with 45-41, treated mice with Duncaniae, and treated mice with F. prosnitzi. So there is a decrease of the macroscopic score in mice treated with MF, Veterinária, and Probity, but again, not with 4541. We have tested the 6 different species that we have in the laboratory, and except for 4541, all of them have shown anti-inflammatory properties, but again, not the 4541. So, in both IBS and IBD, the species 4541 has no anti-inflammatory properties. I have to say that we look, of course, at the butyrate production of this bacteria, of this fecal bacterium, the 4541, and 4541 produce the same amount of butyrate than the other. So it's something that you have to keep in mind. Now I'm going always with the diversity behind the head, I'm going to talk about mechanism of action, and so this slide summarizes the different what we know on mechanism of action of Faecalibacterium. So we know, for example, that Faecalibacterium can produce some components which will activate a special class of special category of disease of the dendritic cells called DP8 in human. We know also that butyrate, so I was just talking about butyrate, and Philippe also talked a lot of butyrate before in his speech. So FO produce a lot of butyrate. Butyrate is known to have a to inhibit the inflammation. And we have also published 7 years ago the existence of the MAM protein. And I'm going to focus now on this MAM protein. So just a small story on how we detected MAM. So remember at the beginning of my speech, I was talking of the anti-inflammatory properties of FO, and that the bacteria and the supernatant can have anti-inflammatory properties. So it was really the supernatant. We started to work on the supernatant, and we compared. We made a peptidomic comparison between the culture media, so sterile culture media, and the culture media conditioned by Faecalibacterium community. So let's call it the supernatant. And so we made this peptidomic comparison, and we found, very interestingly, we found several peptides, 7 peptides, which were present in the supernatant and absent from the culture media. And we were very lucky because those 7 peptides, they belong to the same gene. At this time, this gene was had this number, and we call this protein microbial anti-inflammatory molecules, MAP. And we made all of this work on the, at this time it was an F-Pro, so on the F-Veterinária A2 165 strain. So this was published 7 years ago. Of course, since 7 years ago, we have made a lot of progress, and we have looked in the different library, in the different database, and we have retrieved a sequence of MAM protein, and we have compared these different MAM protein. And as you can see, so it's a comparison of few of the MAM protein that we have in the database, and you can see that they are very different. The one MAM protein from one species to another species, they are very different. And here are localized the main region where you can see homology. And the highest homology that you can find is here, in this little peptide amino acid. And probably you cannot see clearly, but here you have, at position 2021, you have a double G. I'm going to come back to this double G, which are very interesting. Recently, we have the question around MAM is also the question of its mechanism of action, but also, for example, of its structure. And so Thais, who is PhD student in our laboratory, she worked very hardly and she used new software called AlphaFold 2. And AlphaFold 2 is able to produce model of 3D structure of very difficult protein. So using AlphaFold 2, Thais was able to produce this 3D model structure of MAM from Duncan Yale. As you can see, it will start with not very well organized parts. So this residue 1 to 22 here, which is very conserved in all the different MAM, is located here. The other part, very conserved between the MAM, is located in this alpha X. And the last part is located in this alpha X. So, of course, Thais produced the MAM structure now from fecal bacterial plasmid, and you can see that there is alpha X's, but the structure is not exactly the same. They are close, but they are not exactly the same. And for people, specialists of protein structure, they call this structure, let's say, not well organized. Okay? So the structure of this protein is not strong. The interaction between the alpha is not very strong. So it looks like something that can move. Okay. So this is the structure of the MAM of fecal bacterium potency, and the last structure of this famous, so I talked to you already of 4541. So this is the structure of this MAM from 4541. So all of this is unpublished, and it's the work of Thais. I think I'm going to skip that, and I'm going to move to, in the gut in 2015, where we describe the anti-inflammatory properties of MAM, we worked on MAM from A265. Okay, at this time we had just one MAM, but now we have MAM from a lot of different species. So we compared in vitro the anti-inflammatory properties of all those MAM. Okay, here is the academic MAM, but you can see that we can find MAM from, for example, F21 is all named from F proximity. So here is F Duncania, here is F proximity, and you can see that the MAM from F proximity is much more active than the MAM from Duncania. It's much more active than this. And very interestingly, here you can see that the MAM from 4541 has no definitive anti-inflammatory properties. So I know that correlation is not reason, but so we have species 4541 with in vivo, no anti-inflammatory properties in IBS, in IBD, and this MAM has a MAM. This 4541, sorry, has a MAM, but its MAM has no anti-inflammatory properties. So I'm going to end here. I'm going to finish my talk here, and as you can see, most of the time is take-home messages, so probably take-home answers. But I have much more questions than answers. So, for example, what we know for sure yet that is Faecalibacterium genus is diverse, with already at least 6 species characterized. 2 more to come from our own laboratory, and maybe 20, 30, or if Marcus is right, 81. So we are far to have all the different species in the laboratory. Metagenomic studies, they have to be reconsidered regarding this diversity of the genus, because so far, in the metagenomic studies, they are talking about F proteincy, but we know that there is much more than F proteincy, and we know that the different F proteincy, different Faecalibacterium have different properties. So the different species are present at the same level in healthy human. Yes, no. We know that no, we have already performed some experiments, and we know that we have diversity in the level of the different F-pro. We know also that they don't behave the same, they are not decreased at the same rate in IBD. The answer is, again, is no. It's preliminary results. We know already that all the species will react differently during the pathology. And why? Because all these species will react different. They have not the same sensitivity to oxygen. Despite all these differences, all the species tested so far, 6 species, showed anti-inflammatory property in vitro and in vivo, with this exception of this 45-41, which is very strange. Despite all this variation, none from all the species tested so far, they have anti-inflammatory properties, except for the man from 45-41. So, of course, I raise the question, is man responsible for the global anti-inflammatory properties of Faecalibacterium? Probably not, but probably just the beginning of the story. What is the role of MAM? You have to know that MAM is the most abundant mRNA in Faecalibacterium. In all the transcriptomic studies that we have performed, or other laboratories in the world have performed on Faecalibacterium, MAM is the most abundant mRNA. And you know that bacteria, they don't produce something that they don't need. So if it's the first one, it's very important for the bacteria. And I could raise more and more questions, but I'm going to stop here, and I'd like to thank you for your attention, and I'd like to thank the Probiot team. Thank you very much.
Does anyone?
I have 2 questions. Yes, 2. The first one is regarding your diversity, the biodiversity that you showed. You told us that there is a small core genome and a huge parent genome. And how do you explain this? How do you did you check whether or not Faecalibacterium genus carries a lot of mobile genetic elements? Do they exchange a lot of DNA, stuff like that?
It's our hypothesis. We haven't started to do that, but we are in contact with people, experts, specialists in this kind of genetic mobile element, eyes and things like that, and the people from North Sea. And we're going to start to work on this.
My second question.
Yes.
If you go deeper in screening this biodiversity regarding the anti-inflammatory effect, you showed us that some strains are neutral and some are really anti-inflammatory. Do you think you may find maybe some pro-inflammatory strains?
I don't know, not so far. Not so far, but it's very strange that 45-41 doesn't work inflammatory properties, because I'm sure that MAM don't explain everything, of course, because there is nuclear, but this bacteria, I mean, it produces the same amount of nuclear than the others, you see. So this bacteria brings butyrate, but butyrate don't do anything. It's strange, but I can tell you that we produce these results a lot of times. So pro-inflammatory, wow, that would be heresy.
Maybe this neutral strain has an anti-inflammatory effect due to butyrate, but also some compounds that are pro-inflammatory and
compensation.
And congratulations.
One more question. Oh, sorry.
Thank you for this wonderful talk. Really mind-blowing. I have two questions actually. First one is there any genomic characterization of this species that you show that is unknown that provides some explanation
Of the 4541?
of all the 6 ones? Any actually.
No, except not really. No, except it for the so in vivo, all the species except the 4541, we don't see a lot of differences. Okay, it's very difficult in vivo to rank different bacteria, right? Because you should give different doses, something like that. In vivo, it's very difficult to do something like that, to have significant differences between, to make those range expert. So we can make also for the moment, the only hypothesis that we have is around MAM, and we try to find the role of this protein. I didn't show you that, but Thais also performed. I skipped a slide about the genetic environment of the MAM protein. The MAM protein is always close to sporulation genes. Okay, that's one result. The MAM is also most of the time close to the ABC transporter. ABC transporter are made to transport peptides, molecules outside. And this explicit transporter seems to be specific, more or less specific from MAM, because this ABC transporter has a peptide base specific from the double G of the leader peptide. Okay, so much probably, I don't know if it's absolutely specific from MAM, but it's useful for MAM. And probably this MAM protein is secreted at the membrane, in the cytoplatin, not in the cytoplatin, but probably associated to the membrane. So something with the cell wall, something with the structure. So it's complex.
My second question, I think you probably already answered, but did you see which one of these 6 species show better results at a given context?
Better results if you take the bacteria, if you give it to the mice. We have one inactive species, 4541, the other one, they are very good. And as I said, it's very difficult to rank, to discriminate between the different species. In French.
We try other protein behind population
No, of course, also all the genes involved in butyrate production are probably very important. And to answer to your question, we will need to develop a strategy to manipulate genetically bacteria. It's on its way, but it's also very difficult. We have some success and we have some failure. You're welcome.
Lunchtime.
No, 2 minutos.
Okay, so thank you very much, Dr. Shikal, for your great presentation. So before we have a lunch break, I have a couple reminders. So because of a soccer match in a stadium close to UFMG, the gate in Carlos Cruz Avenue will be closed at 2 p.m. So pay attention if you have any cars parked in that street or so pay attention on that. And so the gate that is open is the main in the veterinary school gate.
Esse que vai ser fechado aqui. A gente sai por ele e volta por ele. Quem quiser ir almoçar, aí vai para o silêncio, na frente. Então, eu estou...
So we are coming back at 2:30, okay? Not in the scheduled time on the website, but 2:30. Thank you.
Então, aí vamos, eu, você,